Business owners, need more customers? Offer fantasy sports contests and generate more sales. Restaurants, bars, hotels, auto dealerships, real estate offices. Whatever your business, fantasy sports contests can help you increase your sales and bring you more loyal customers. Visit Fanify.com or call 888-55-SPORT. Our software lets you customize contests fast and easy for your brand. That's right. Visit Fanify.com or call 888-55-SPORT. That's 888-55-SPORT or visit Fanify.com.
Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
You want to start off?
I think I'll get it out of the way on a who's not.
Okay, do it.
The Orioles.
Right.
They got swept by the Royals. They lost 4 in a row, and the last 5 games have all been decided by 1 run.
Long live Pop. Y'all can go ahead and cry now. I'm gonna show these niggas what to do with one of your beats, man. I am Gas, by the way. Strong woman story should have been on CNN. Nobody knows what it's like being Gwen. Windows closed in the house, it ain't no CNN. Can't gain weight for years, she been being thin. Single mother, no help from the system. When they was giving...
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Now we're talking with Mervin A. Bourne Jr.
and Lolita E. Walker,
where you get it from a man's
and a woman's perspective.
Welcome, everybody.
Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to Now We're Talking. It is Thursday night with Mervin A. Bourne and Lolita E. Walker. Okay. Okay, and now we're back. Hopefully you guys don't hear that hum anymore, but when you're live, we get instant feedback. It's a wonderful thing. So we're here, Mervin A. Bourne, Lolita E. Walker.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back. So you can catch us on Facebook, on Now We're Talking Radio, and Be Exposed Radio, and YouTube, Be Exposed Radio.
BeExposedRadio.com.
Oh, yep. We are everywhere. Today, it is week 2 of the month, and we are talking growing us. We're talking growing us and growing our children. How do we grow our children to be their best selves? Especially in a world where technology is right at their fingertips. There's so much pressure on our children these days.
From all directions, outside influences, other than what is going on.
Yes. I mean, school is just a different animal from when we were there. The values, the principles, the pressures. Because of social media, I feel like, those pressures are so different. Yes. Oh, please. Still humming? Oh, okay. So we just must have some technical issues. We're trying to all get that stuff together, but I'm just going to keep pushing. Whoa! And now you might not see us, but we're still going to talk it up. Oh, okay. Great. So listen, now we're talking. We have 3 amazing guests that are going to be with us today. We have Brianna, Talia. I met this amazing woman. I was a panelist at her project. She founded the You Are Not Alone project in Baltimore, and it was really talking depression. It was talking how to get out of that. It was talking about the fact that you are not alone. It was so powerful.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And the amazing thing is that was her kickoff for her annual event. And this year she is planning her event, which I'm sure she'll talk about when she's here with us in a couple of minutes. But she's also bringing men into the fold. So I'm really excited about that, because for men to talk about mental illness, that their own mental illness,
yes,
I imagine is difficult.
It is. It's not something that's common. It's not something that happens very often. I mean, there's a lot of still stigma around mental illness in general. Issues about mental health. But particularly with men, the idea of being open and honest about mental health struggles and mental health issues is still something that we need to do much better at as a society. So that's very needed.
And being open and honest just about you. I think just in general, the stigma of a man is this strong, robust, always strong, not crying. How many times have we talked about the fact just about communication?
Yes.
It's so important. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's a strength to be able to communicate what you're feeling. So I'm so excited to talk to her. She's a mother of a school-age child in Baltimore City. She's a powerful young entrepreneur. She'll talk about her project while she's here. And she's really just opening up the conversation and bringing awareness to mental health. So the reason mental health is important, not only because it's Mental Health Awareness Month this month, not only because it's affecting our children at alarming rates, but also because it's affecting our children, and how do we as parents and as grown-ups deal with this when it's so silent?
Right. And how do you adjust your parenting style and basically step your game up as a parent when we have to deal with issues that weren't necessarily issues when we were children?
Yeah, or we didn't know about it.
Or we didn't know about it. They weren't brought to the forefront. So it really, really requires a level of openness and courage as parents to really step things up and address the issues that our children are confronted with every day.
Every day. Vulnerability. So yay. Then we have Mr. Derrick Terry, who's here.
Yeah, and Mr. Derrick Terry is an author. He's the author of the book, I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying, Memoirs of Good and Bad in the Education System. Mr. Terry is also a 28-year military veteran. He's also an educator who focuses primarily on emotionally disturbed children in the special education realm. So we're very excited about having Mr. Terry here joining us as a guest on the show tonight.
Yes.
I know he's going to have a lot to add to the discussion.
I'm really looking forward to talking about just education. So in schools right now, with the pressures that we're seeing from social media, from bullying, the suicides that we're seeing, that's rampant with our children. How do you, one, start addressing those things with your children, but then how do you get in front of it and understand what's going on with them? Then how do we grow them? So, how do you, and he deals with students that are special needs children, and that takes a different level of patience, a different lens.
Certainly.
Yeah, that I met a woman in our neighborhood just 2 days ago, and her son, they recently found out that her son was dyslexic. And, he was being challenged in school, and, them saying he's not on his best behavior, what's going on with him being written up. And finally, he articulated that the words are jumping out at me, they won't stay still. That voice has now prompted them into action, and just how silent he was for almost the whole school year.
Yeah, probably thinking that something was wrong with him, and he couldn't turn to anyone or anywhere for help.
Yes, so we're looking to talk to Derrick about that, and he has a definite perspective on education, so that's going to be amazing. And then we have Miss LaKetia Peoples, who is a licensed social worker, and she's in a mental health space. She's a therapist for over 15 years, combined with work in child welfare, mental health, domestic violence, and sexual assault, as well as advocacy in emergency responses. And when we are raising our children, what happens when the parents are not all locked in? What if something's going on with them?
Yeah. Who do you turn to? What happens when the people that are supposed to be protecting you and guiding you and encouraging you and strengthening you are actually not there to do that or not doing that? It's a real situation.
We have a big show for you today. So let's step back, and we got to do our wins before we go to commercial break.
Yes. Wins for the week. Started the college conversation, or continued the college conversation with my son, and got out and got to see some schools, and it was really exciting. So I feel like we've turned a corner that we hadn't turned before in terms of his openness and his enthusiasm about taking his education to the next level. So I'm super excited about that.
Congratulations. That's a big deal. And you're growing him. The fact that now he can see different schools, what they offer, what's important to him.
Right.
Power.
Yes,
Go,
definitely.
Dad.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
How about you?
My win for the week. I will be in Seattle at the end of July in Seattle for a book tour, and I'll be at the Barnes and Nobles downtown. And I just got confirmation from a woman who I've met a little while ago, and we have just bonded, and she has put together this workshop in Seattle that is going to be amazing. So I'm just so excited to be able to now go to a new place and talk about impact women and teams. Absolutely.
Here's to uncharted territory, being brave and stepping outside of your circle.
Yes.
And exploring new things and achieving new things.
Hashtag win.
That's right.
Win for the week. So think about your wins for the week. Think about what you've done this week. It's already just started, but what is your gratitude? What is a win? How have you impacted the world this week? And I think we're going to be right back.
Yeah, in a minute. Stay with us. Now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita.
We're rewarding you for something you already do, listening to us. It's Radio Loyalty, and it's an easy way for you to get free stuff. All you do is sign up. Go ahead and click the banner now. You'll earn points as you listen. Points you can trade in for great products and services in the Radio Loyalty store. You can earn even more points when you share your favorite station with friends on Facebook and Twitter. Radio Loyalty. It's free to sign up, so click the banner to join now.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
This is a Poverty ENT exclusive. Next stop, Texaco. Strapped up, you already know. Fuck niggas hate, that's how it goes. Bros with me, yeah, it's time to go.
Nigga, chose by another nigga, bitch, damn. This chopper got 50 round clip. So this Molly and the syrup got me geeking, shorty. Ain't know I popped them Xannies, had them sleeping on me. Love in a hood full of hate. Pray to God that he open up them gates. Rest in peace to Freddie Gray and Lil Scooter. Putting on for our city, watch his door.
Next stop, Texaco. Strapped up, you already know. Fuck niggas hate, that's how it goes. Bros with me, yeah, it's time to go. City, got my mind strong, take a time bomb. Fuck a pot, I'd rather pat the kitty. I don't want the city, don't call me Diddy. Yeah, I rap my city, ready to show them something they ain't ready for. Make a voice firm so you can't ignore it. Talking shit like I'm fixing toilets. Shag a rhythm, I can see me torn. Horn cuffs, shades on, shirt off, strapped up, Molly down, blowing strong, riding around. The demonstration hold 50 rounds, I'm a fool with it. Got ratchet niggas that's cool with it. You got a cold heart till that ooh hit it. Stop fucking with me, got my mind set, see my mind state is at a high rate. Next stop, Texaco. Strapped up, you already know. Fuck niggas hate, that's how it goes. Bros with me, yeah, it's time to go.
always gotta remember, is people gonna try to project their insecurities onto you. But you can't listen to what them niggas saying. You gotta get out here and do your shit regardless. You gonna do what you love for the rest of your life anyway. So why not turn that shit into something? Be a man of everything you say. This shit bigger than me, man. Like, yeah, I'm good and all that, but you know what I mean? I ain't shit without y'all. So no matter what you up against, go hard. Don't matter. Can you imagine how I really having nothing is? Stomach growling, you ain't got no food in the fridge. Surviving on a jail diet of water and bread. No father figure, that's cause my father dead. Mom's bringing different niggas in and out the crib. No money, so you seen it's less than all your friends. But it a joke because your mother was a crackhead. Older sister hoeing off, giving all the homies head. I could wait for your response, but they love to hear me talk, so I'll just wait for the applause. I always knew that I was great, I got them haters so appalled. I'ma make it out the darkness, and my word is my bond. Delivering these bars while I'm gripping on my balls. Jealous niggas hate to see you succeed, so fuck them all. I'm the master of my destiny, nigga, you not in charge. You either on your grind or in the way, so get lost. Be a man of everything you say you stand for. Lead your people by example, being hands-on. If you're back against the wall, then get your mash on. Fix your vision on the future like it's fast forward. The world is yours in due time, ain't gotta ask for it. I'm from the school of hard knocks, I took a crash course. Shit be stressful, my nigga, that's why I'm getting high. But that's life, and it's the code that I live by. And you know how it is, where we at, nigga. They say money can't buy happiness, but I be happy as a bitch when I can have dinner. Learn from your losses or you end up like the last nigga. I fall off, I bounce back, I really come from the dirt. But if you wanna make it happen, gotta put in the work. The word will kick you when you down, and I know this shit hurt. And it's crazy cause your family, your shit on you first. My sister stabbed me in my chest, I had a hole in my shirt. I never said a prayer for her on my way to the hearse. I died twice that night, man, I'm just happy to be here. And shit like that is the reason I never be scared. Was drifting through the smoke in the field, I couldn't see clear. It's deeper than the rap, I'm where the bottom of the sea is. Just trying to make it happen till I happen to ball. It's all mind over matter, the fuck the matter with y'all, huh? Be a man of everything you say you stand for. Lead your people by example, being hands-on. If you're back against the wall, then get your mash on. Fix your vision on the future like it's fast forward. The world is yours in due time, ain't gotta ask for it. I'm from the school of hard knocks, I took a crash course. Shit be stressful, my nigga, that's why I'm getting high. But that's life, and it's the code that I live by.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lane.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back. So now we're talking with Mervin A. Bourne and Lolita E. Walker. We have 2/3 of our panel that is here, and LaKetia is on her way, so we're super excited. So we have Brianna and we have Derrick. And so for those of you guys just joining us, we are on Facebook, Be Exposed Radio. We're on Now We're Talking, and we're on BeExposedRadio.com.
Yes.
And YouTube. Yes. We are everywhere. We are talking growing us, growing our children to help them become their best versions of themselves.
Absolutely.
Especially in today's society. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and anything more just about our topic.
Well, your intro was like amazing, so
it's all I don't even have to say much.
I don't even have to say much, but I am Brianna Talia. I am the creator of the You Are Not Alone project. I am a mother of a 5-year-old, as you said before, in the Baltimore City school system. Yes. I have been on radio, I have hosted, I have done events, I have modeled, I have done it all. So,
all right.
You could say I dipped my toes everywhere.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. But I started the You Are Not Alone project last year. My first brunch was October 6th, which was my birthday as well, and that's all I wanted to do for my birthday. But the You Are Not Alone project was started to bring people together who are suffering from any kind of mental illness and, you know, feel they don't have an outlet. So people who are feeling like they're alone, people who are feeling like no one else understands, people who are feeling down like they have no one else in the world who could possibly relate to what they're going through. So this is just a platform where you can open up to other individuals, get help, and get advice. So my next brunch is in October. Hopefully I'm going to do it on my birthday again, October 6th. And this one will include men, as you said before. So I'm really excited about that.
I am too. I am too. Yeah. I had the pleasure of being at your first on a panel, and I'll tell you that there is so much power in the room of just women. Number one. But then, as Mervin and I were saying earlier, to have this conversation and bring men into this conversation about mental illness and really just about vulnerability. It's so different than what we talk about today.
It is.
And so as we continue on, I'd just like to talk about that and how you decided to bring men in and things like that. Okay. But I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And my name is Derrick Terry, and I want to definitely thank you for the warm introduction. Sure. And myself, I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, via military, and my family resided in Edgewood, Maryland. And from there, I pretty much got my first feel and love for Baltimore, and never really gave that up, meaning that it's always a pleasure to be back. And as an educator, a special educator, I have a deep passion, meaning that I understand that kids learn at different ways and different levels. But for me, growing up, I knew I was surrounded with kids that had learning disabilities, and I probably didn't know what it was. But what I learned is that, you know, they learn different, but at the same time, we're all the same. And one of my passions, the other passion that I have, is mentoring kids, which is why I eventually got into education. I started out in public relations with the Baltimore City Health Department, Healthy Start, and I guess it called me versus me calling it. And during that time, I also was in the military. You know, it's hard to believe, but 2 years ago, I retired military reserves, 28 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
What branch?
Started out Army, and I switched to Air Force.
Yes, Air Force. My dad was Air Force, absolutely.
But because, like I said, the military upbringing I had, and also my dad's last duty station being in Edgewood, military sort of was just there, and, you know, I took it. But and one thing that I learned along the way with dealing with military is that, you know, I value integrity, you know, I value the transparency, but at the same time, you know, everyone has sacrifices something. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be your life, but it all depends on what you do. But we all sacrifice something. And, you know, I have two beautiful kids, a 12-year-old son, a 19-year-old daughter who attends Morgan State. Okay, my wife, beautiful wife who attends Morgan State. I went to Towson, so.
I mean, there's always one
put it out
bunch.
There. But, you know, everything which I do centers around education and youth, which is one reason why I wrote the book. My company is called EvoCare, and the primary purpose of EvoCare is to advocate for special needs kids as well as their families, but also the general population when it comes to education. And one reason I wrote the book, because if there's teachers out there, we know that there's a lot that we do, but there's very little that we can say. And I'm one of those rebels, I guess, that there is good and bad in education. And I believe when you hold people to the truth, you hold them accountable. And kids are not always the problem. Sometimes it's adults, and that's what we have to address. And, you know, sometimes the truth hurts, but like I always tell people, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. And the reason I say that is because if you're going to complain, bring some solution, some solutions. So that's pretty much why, you know, I want to be here to be able to provide some solutions.
I like that.
And to listen to some other solutions that are out here. So, and I definitely appreciate being on the show.
Absolutely. I
Pleasure
love
to
that.
have you.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm wondering if we can start just from the parents' perspective. It looks like we're all parents in a room. From the parents' perspective, when you have children in school, let's just throw out a scenario. Is your child is in school and they come home and you know there's something going on with them. They're just not themselves. Let's say it's going on for a week, because this happens. And you're going in and out, you're asking them what's going on, etc. But finally, they say to you, I'm having some issues in school and I've been getting bullied for the last 2 weeks and I just don't know what to do. As an advocate, as a parent, let's do that. As a parent, what's your first inclination? And then tell us from where you sit now, what would you say to a parent out there that's really struggling with that right now?
Yeah, look at me. I'll go first. But as a parent, the first thing I'm saying, who the hell messed with my child? So that's what I'm saying at first, right?
Y'all were thinking that.
And then I'm trying to figure, but you know, both my wife and I are both educators, so it's difficult sometimes for us to you know take the hats on and off. But what we try to realize is to get to the root of the problem. You know, my son has been bullied before, but it's not to the point where someone's hitting him, but it was calling names, and it was a female. And how do you address a female who's bullying you by calling you names? You know, we train him and we teach him. You don't hit females. You don't call them out their names and stuff like that. So, you know, for him, he had to like suck it up. But, you know, his thing, well, I won't be no snitch.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, you're not being a snitch. What you're doing is addressing the problem. Because I'm guessing she probably likes you. That's what I'm saying to myself. Because typically, you know, when a female, I wouldn't necessarily say it's bullying a boy, but it's teaching a boy, there's something within that relationship. So we try to get to the root of the problem, and most of the time it's petty stuff that we normally resolve either with the teacher in the school or with the son. So we've been fortunate, but I know there's cases that we'll talk about later where I've dealt with as an educator where it was a little bit more time consuming and traumatic.
Yeah. I think one of the things, before we get to you, one of the things I heard you say was really reframing the perspective from the child's perspective. So asking them, this is what I think I heard you say, is asking them like, hey, what's going on, and getting to the root of the problem. So why are you feeling this way? Sounded like that. And then what's happening, right? And then you said that you kind of reframed it a little bit. And I think that when we do that reframing with our children, it helps them see another perspective, but also reminds them of protecting yourself. You're going to be your own advocate, but let me show you how. So my son was bullied in the start of the year, and so that kind of hit home with me.
And see, I'm going to have to get advice from you guys, because like I said, my daughter, she's only 5, so she's not into she doesn't even know what bullying is yet, you know, but she has had instances where like one of like a kid who she said is her friend has like pushed her or you know, and I'm like, well, you know, they keep doing that. Is that really your friend? You know, maybe you should sit back and think about it. Is it really your friend? And I know, you know, when I was younger, I was bullied, so I make sure I reassure her like every single day. I tell her how smart she is. I tell her how beautiful she is. You know, regardless of what, you know, whatever who may say when you go to school, if they just know that you are this and you are that. You know, you're beautiful. You're smart. I said there's nothing wrong with you. So I just hope that we don't get to a point where she's bullied like I was, but I'm gonna wait for you guys to give me advice on that. Yeah, you got the older kids. So.
I know, like with my daughter, and that's my baby girl. And
how old is she?
She's 19 now.
19.
But I remember there were stages when I think it may have been middle school or high school. I can't remember. And I guess you would call it bullying. I wouldn't look at it as bullying, but when you think about it in retrospect, it really is bullying, where someone would say something about her or spread rumors or whatever it may be. And I'm like, who? That's, you know, and I'm the type, you need to nip it in the bud. But because I'm not a female. But what I do understand is that female friendships are different from male friendships, where we can talk, guys can talk about one another, but we're not going to take it to the extreme where, oh, you talking about me, I don't like you no more. Where I know just with teaching and just with just my daughter's experiences, you call someone out their name, oh, I'm not fooling with her no more. I'm not fooling her no more. So I think one of the ways that we can try to address that is just, you know, I always tell, if you're going to dish it, be able to handle it. And if that person constantly talks about you, they're really not your friend. And I always tell my students, the friends you see now are not going to be the friends you're going to have later. And it's unfortunate, but it's not going to be. You're going to have to make changes. Like when I was in high school, I made changes. 9th grade, I had a group of friends. 10th and a half grade, I made a choice. And I remember Miss Sharon, she gave me 3 options. You can either go down the path with your friends, drug dealing, whatever. You can go to jail, or you can die. And I was like, I don't want neither one of those. I want none of 3. So my choice was to do better.
Right.
Because I knew I could do better.
But what you just said is that someone took a keen interest in you.
Right.
And I think that's even at your brunch. It falls on that same thing. Acceptance, because my son just turned 7. So he's not old, he's young. He's 6, just turned 7. And that thing about acceptance is such a big deal, even for adults. And so when we talk about growing our children, I think the conversation is exactly what you were saying before. Where is your core foundation? Who are you? This is who you are fundamentally. And then when children don't accept you, how do you continue to grow them? Because it is hurtful. It is very hurtful.
And how do you strike the balance between your child wanting to be accepted and wanting to be in certain crowds with teaching your child to be a leader and not a follower? And that's one of the constant themes that I have to keep talking about in my house with I have 2 children, a girl and a boy, is if you're a leader, then people are following you. You don't have to worry about trying to be accepted into somebody else's group or somebody else's crowd.
Absolutely.
But it's easier said than done,
It
right?
is.
Because as you said, it's still an issue for adults.
Yes.
So imagine as young children having those issues. It's not easy. So.
And then role modeling and talking. We're all about solutions on our show too. So it's, as we talk about acceptance, because it is hurtful. You do feel it. You don't feel like you're part of that cool crowd. But then even my son, his affirmation every day is pretty long, but part of it is just that I am not a follower, but instead I will lead. And it's not that he does it every day, but reminding them, it's that consistency, right?
That's
reminding
important.
them what's important, having them say it back to you, using examples of what happened in the day and saying, I get it. And remembering a little bit of how it was when we were young too, So growing our children in that sense, I think we're talking about just reiteration of the greatness that they already are from a young age. What do you do for a child that you see, you're an educator. You see all gamuts of children that come from 2-parent household, 1-parent household, children that have parents, they're wards of the state, might not even have parents per se. How do you grow children when their self-confidence isn't already there?
Well, from my perspective, because like you had mentioned before, I deal with emotional disturbed students, but I hadn't always dealt with emotionally disturbed students. So we'll talk about the emotionally disturbed students later. But when you're dealing with just a regular set of students or special ed students in either an inclusion or in a self-contained class, one thing you have to get control is your class. So I always look like parenting. They know how Mr. Terry is.
They know where your boundaries are.
But I understand that all of them are not going to behave the same way. And I started teaching in Baltimore City. And I tell my kids now, the best group of kids I had were in Baltimore City because I kept it real. I kept it real. They kept it real with me.
What level?
At high school. I taught at I started at Lake Clifton.
Oh, wow.
So, and I'm gonna lie, I loved it. And because the kids realized, man, Mr. Terry cares. They said some teachers would call us stupid and all this other stuff. I said, I don't know why. You might be lazy, but I don't think you're stupid.
Right.
Two different things.
I said, so what we're going to do is wake up that mind, and we're going to learn some algebra.
Love that.
So, and that's how I looked at it. So, in all the years that I've taught, I think I may have only had one fight in my class. I had flights. People would talk about it because I controlled the class. And that's not always the easy thing to do. But I look at it sort of like parenting. Parenting is a little bit more difficult because you got to see your kids every day. I ain't got to see these kids in school every day. So, but I try to have a balance and I try to be consistent. And I think that's part of the thing, just being consistent.
Yeah,
as we get older, although we're consistent, I think our tolerance levels drop down, well, they get a little bit higher, or is it lower? I can't remember, one or the other.
You get a little more rigid in your
and,
ideas.
So it's like, so it really varies. But
yeah.
We have you to touch on it.
We have a question on the line from G. Darnell Copes. I have had the same situation with my preteen, but what do you do when that is your child's only friend or BFF?
What, the person who's bullying them?
The person who's bullying them. I'm assuming,
well,
right?
Then that's not their friend. That's the same thing I try to tell my daughter. If you have this person that's supposed to be your friend that's constantly harassing you or constantly putting you down, that is not a friend. Yeah,
let's redefine what friend is.
Exactly. At that point, we need to let you know what a friend really is, because that's not it.
And I think the other thing, because bullying is bullying, but let's define the type of bullying. Like you have that what I call peer pressure bullying.
Right.
Where, come on, if you don't do this, you're not my girl, you're not my boy. You're gonna be a punk. So it's sort of like you bullying me into doing something that I don't want to do because of the peer pressure. And we've for the most part have been there some point in our life. I've been there. Adults to some degree are still there. But I think one of the ways you can address that is find new friends.
Yeah.
That's one way, because if that is your only friend, I'm saying, then there may be some social issues.
Yeah, I think also just with this question here, I was really thinking about it a little bit as you guys were talking. And I think another thing you can do is really talk to your child or your preteen about what is it about this person that you really love? Like, what is it about him that makes him your BFF? Let's talk about it. And get those things that's pulling out. And as you hear the positive things, that's great, but really listen to the things that might be like peer pressure-ish. Oh, I like them because they're cool. Really? Oh, okay. Well, what makes them so cool? Not in a defensive way, but listening in, like really trying to listen. And I think I forget what show it was, but we were talking about digging in communication and really getting that why deep down. So then they come to their own realization of that person not being a friend. So maybe start off with, what makes them your best friend? Really? Oh, so they're cool like that? Yeah.
I also think it's important to dig even deeper than that at what is it that makes the child dependent or yearn for whoever the person is. And a lot of times it comes back to the way that the child feels about themselves. Yeah. Again, just like adults, right? And when you're in a relationship with someone that, for all intents and purposes, you shouldn't be in a relationship with, it ultimately comes back to how you feel about yourself. Right? Yeah. So do you feel like this other child is more important than you, is better than you, is smarter than you, is prettier than you, is more valuable than you, is cooler than you, whatever that
pedestal that you're holding them on.
Does your child have that person up here and themselves down here? And I think if you examine that, typically that's the case, right?
So what if it is the case? So what the feedback is, what if your child holds somebody, these friends, not so much friends, but these friends at this pedestal?
Then how do you handle
How do you handle that is the question.
Well, I think typically, and I'm only speaking from, and as I'm sitting here listening to the conversation, I'm thinking most kids, well, I won't say most kids, but when I look at friendships, and I'm like, why are they friends with that person? Yeah. It's typically something tangible. Like for me, and I'm just thinking like, and I hope my mom to get upset, but I gravitated to friends whose parents cooked. My mom cooked a lot, but y'all eating dinner? I literally would go eat dinner at his house, and then I would come back and eat dinner at my house. Not because I was hungry, because I was just greedy and I love to eat. Or I may have a friend that your mom lets you, or your dad lets you look at rated R movies. Okay, yeah, that's my friend. But what is it about that friend? I'm saying that quality, nice, caring, whatever. And I think to some degree that's there. But in my mind, a lot of times there's that tangible part of it that gets you that connection. They may play a sport, or because he plays football or basketball, that's my boy.
So we're going to hold that, because I have another perspective on that. But when we come back, we're going to deep dive right back in. So ask your questions, and we'll be right back. But now we're talking.
Stay with us. Be right back.
Here's what you missed on Salacious Life Radio.
When it comes to your children,
especially if you're dating someone that you actually like, you do want it to work. So you're gonna hope and encourage the relationship between your child and that person because you like that person, you know. So you're gonna hope for the best. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work, and you can't make it work. You can't force it. It's like a branch. You keep bending it. Eventually, it'll snap, and even if you put it back together, it'll never be what it once was. But you definitely pray on it. You hope for the best, you know, because like nobody wants to spend the rest of their life alone just because a particular relationship didn't work out, but you had this beautiful creature as a result of it, you know. But you don't want to necessarily spend and you're not all of a sudden a bad person. You're not all of a sudden not going to fulfill this other person's needs.
You, madam, are a harlot and a scoundrel.
Because I had one kid while I was still married. Like,
I take that back.
What if the situation turns around the other way? So you ready for your child to meet? They meet the person, and this person is a giver. So this person's buying your child lots of gifts and wanting to.
I would usually.
Do you let?
You don't like if it's a birthday or some sort of holiday or something like that. Okay, and they want to get them a few things or get them something. Okay, but just on like a regular basis, like unless it's like Nestle's Quick or something that you can get from like, you know what I'm saying, or like Kit Kats or something like that. Like, no, don't spend a lot of money. It's unrealistic.
I'm sorry.
It's unrealistic. Like, don't try to buy his.
Tune in live to Salacious Life Radio every Wednesday from 9 to 11, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
This unknown to find who we really are. Crash into something new and take a break from our broken heart. Talk with the hip, tell me you lie. I think we should go for another round. Baby, try not to say too much. Let your love come down. If you wanna rule, it's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move, don't wait on nobody else. And if it feels like a melody, sing a song with my radio. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. Let the night unfold. I can tell that she can't get enough. Show enough, she couldn't get the feels off from me. Oh no, she couldn't get the feels off from me. Touching hands till we dance in the dark. Show enough, she couldn't get the feels off from me. We do whatever you like. Get the feels off from me. Oh no, she couldn't get the feels off from me. You and me alone to find who we really are. Crash into something new. I got ballet bringing up the car. So tell me you kiss, tell me you lie. I think we should go for another round. Baby, I wanna take you, but we gotta cruise so we can lose the crowd. If you wanna rule, there's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move, don't wait on nobody else. And if it feels like a melody, sing a song with my radio. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. Let the night unfold. I can tell that she can't get enough. Show enough, she couldn't get the feels off from me. Oh no, she couldn't get the feels off from me. Touching hands till we dance in the dark. Show enough, she couldn't get the feels off from me. We do whatever you like. Get the feels off from me. Oh no, she couldn't get the feels off from me.
Only in the forest can you see this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forest.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Now We're Talking. We are here with amazing guests, and we are deep in on a conversation. If you are just joining us, it is week 2, and we are talking growing us, but specifically growing our children to be their best selves. So we have Brianna, who is here. She is the creator of the You Are Not Alone project, which I can't wait to really dive in and talk about. She's going to be having another brunch that's coming up in October, more to come. And then we have Derrick Terry, who is here, the founder of Advocare.
Yes.
And he is an advocate for children, special needs children. Awesome. And so right before we left, we were you had just talked about tangibles, like you migrated to other children because of tangibles, like cook food or who's cooking, things like that, right? And I was thinking now, specifically, when I think of my son, this notion of acceptance, he migrates to bad behavior. He just instantly migrates to it. And then I start thinking about, well, that's not what I'm teaching at home, so where does that really come from? And then you listen to some of these Nickelodeon shows, that's a cartoon. There's a list of stuff you can't watch anymore.
Shows, the YouTube is serious too. Like you really have to watch what's going on YouTube.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
So what do you do as parents in order to monitor what your children are watching?
Try to limit it. Try to limit the screen time and everything. I know if I notice that my daughter has been in front of that TV or that tablet, put it away. Come on, let's go outside. Let's do some homework. Let's practice this. Let's practice that. Like
be engaged.
Yeah, be engaged. Definitely give her something to do. She has different things that she gets. She has a whiteboard, so she can practice writing words or you know whatever she may want to do. Like she's the type of kid that wants to find a workbook and say, okay, mommy, you know, I want to practice my letters or so, you know. So just keep them engaged in other activities so they don't have to be in front of that screen all the time.
Yeah. For me, I really don't believe in privacy for children. And I know parents have different philosophies on this. Like I've spoken to some of my friends about like checking up on their kids, like their web history and things like that, or their call logs on their cell phones and things, and they're not for that. They think it's, you know, overbearing or you know, it's unnecessary. I think the opposite. I think that as parents we have to be vigilant, and part of being vigilant means you want to know what websites your child has been surfing, who they're talking to on the phone, who they're texting, because I really suspect that if a lot of parents were more in tune with that, then they could head off some problems much earlier on, as opposed to when things get to a disastrous level, because you were in on it, you know, 6 months earlier, a year earlier, before things snowballed and got bigger. Not saying you can be perfect, you can prevent everything, but I just think it helps.
And I think today's generation, for whatever reason, they think that we are technologically stupid. So now I may not know all these new software, I'm late to Twitter, but I know how to check stuff. And my wife and I, we randomly check, and if we see something that shouldn't be on there, we explain, look, this got to go. And my wife, she does a good job with the security settings for YouTube and all that for my son. You know, my daughter's 19, so, you know, she's gonna do what she can do, but you know, I trust her because, you know, she's grown. And I know with my son, you know, he has this tendency to constantly want to be on games that are shooting and stuff like that, but he doesn't take it to the extreme. But some people may say, okay, those games are going to make them violent. If that was the case, I've been violent from day one because I did 28 years in the military, and, you know, I used to, you know, shoot weapons. So the thing that we can do is be vigilant, you know, as parents. But when it comes to, we should give them their privacy. Hell no, they don't pay no bills. So if you're not paying no bills, I look at it when I feel like it. It's just that simple.
Right. And it's not to be nosy; it's really to protect.
Yeah, it's to be nosy.
And it's not just for the sake of being nosy, but it's actually you're doing it for their best interest. You're not doing it for yourself.
I'm doing it for both.
Really for them.
I'm doing it for both.
For your peace of mind, right?
I'm doing it for both because what, you know, especially when you look at like parents who have security clearances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, if there's something on there and those kids get in trouble, and especially when they're at school, that can affect the clearance. Absolutely. And that's something, you know, if there's some parents out there that have these top security clearances, you need to do a better job of checking your child's phone, because I used to be a security manager, and some of those things came up when you had a pending trial or whatever it may be. What's this for? Child pornography. You know, and what kids don't understand.
On your phone or on their phone?
Kids'
on
phone.
Their phones too,
what kids don't understand is like, it's illegal to have child pornography, period, if you're a child or an adult. And a lot of times they don't realize that. So, just as parents, we just have to do a better job being vigilant and just being nosy. That's our right. We earn that right until you turn 18 or pay your own bills.
Yeah, I want to get to you and what your thoughts are too, Brianna. I know you're just over there like cracking up, listening, laughing. It's just always so
I got a lot of different thoughts in my head right now.
Yes.
Because me, like I'm not, too much of. I still gotta watch what I say. I'm sorry, mommy. That kind of thing. But I feel like it's to a certain extent, because if you're too overbearing with children, that's when they become sneaky, and that's what you don't want. Is for your child to be sneaky and not want to tell you anything or come to you with anything. But I do feel like you should monitor it to a certain extent. I also feel as though, it can always depend on the age as well. Like it depends on the age of the child, but. I feel like you can't be too overbearing though, because you don't want that to happen, because you want to always have that open communication with your child. Like I shouldn't have to come and look through yourself, because you should be open with me, telling me what's going on, because I feel like that's just for a while I was sneaky. I'm not gonna lie. You can ask for mom. I had my sneaky moments, but I know like just right now, like my relationship with my mother, I feel like that's my best friend. I'm open with her. I feel like I can tell my mother anything, and it's been like that with us for a long time. Because she always made me feel that way, like like I don't really, she never really went through my things and stuff, because I would tell her, I would come sit in the room with like, mom, this is what's going on and this is how I feel, and if I had a little boyfriend, it'd be like, mom, yeah, this boy, and whatever was going on.
So when we come back, I think we should start with the parent-child relationship and the openness, and let's talk about communication. When we come back, please stay tuned, lots to talk about.
Thought you was gonna have my money today.
Man, it is what it is.
Then last week you told me your wife was cooking.
Man, it is what it is.
Then again, I don't think I want your wife cooking because you don't like it.
Well, it is what it is.
This Fly T Miles, also known as Tyree Miles, and Mr. Miles the writer.
Hip Hop K. Check us out every Friday on Be Exposed Radio. It is what it is, 9/11.
Are they ready to? I know they're not ready to accept it, but yeah, exactly. That's my whole thing. Like, how many of them are really ready to think about it like that?
None.
Like
I think the problem is like I don't even know how we got here, but it's inbred. You're not born to hate people. You're not born to distinguish between black and white and Asian and Hispanic. That's something that you're taught. You're taught. Point blank, period.
Straight up.
My daughter came home and told me that her white teacher was black. Maybe it's because it's how she treated her. She don't see any color. But when it comes to all her friends, all her friends are mixed. All of her friends have a white parent, black, African, Hispanic, other parent.
So
children don't see color. You breed your children. Not breed.
Right.
You raise your children to see that.
Yeah, most definitely.
They don't see racism.
Well, I guess
I met a little girl who had a black doll, and she said because the black dolls are prettier than the white dolls. But then I've taken a black doll and a white doll and put it in front of two kids, and it's a study that they've done before. You put it in front of two kids, and you put it in front of a kid, and you ask them which one is the nice one.
Man, it is what it is. Man, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is.
This Fly T Miles, also known as Tyree Miles, and Mr. Miles the writer.
Hip Hop K. Check us out every Friday on Be Exposed Radio at 9
White keys only have this bitch jumping.
Okay. If I sit around, hold up. Look. If I sit around, hold up. Yeah. Rebel.
If I sit around, I'ma smoke some more. Wasn't even thinking about smoke before, but I'm in my head and I'm in the bed. Don't know who I am, like I'm wearing a mask. Working mode, tell them where the cash. If you wear the cash, tell them where the cash. If you play it for you, gon' run it back. Don't make promises, but I promise that. Don't promise me, cause I ain't into that.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin and Lolita. We're having an amazing discussion tonight.
Yes.
We've been speaking with Mr. Derrick Terry and Miss Brianna Talia.
Yes, thank you.
And we are now joined by our third guest, Miss LaKetia Peoples.
Hello. Welcome to the party. We're going to have a great discussion.
LaKetia is a licensed social worker and also a mental health therapist. She has over 15 years of experience in the field of social work, and including child welfare, mental health, domestic violence, sexual assault, as well as advocacy and emergency response. So LaKetia is a wealth of knowledge, and we're so happy to have you here tonight.
We're going to tap into each part of them. We're going to try all of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're going to try. I think we hit on some already. You weren't here to kind of be the referee in between and tell us where we might have been going astray. So before we left, we were talking about the relationship between parents and children. And you were saying that you have a very healthy relationship with your mom, and it was really spawned on communication, and you just didn't have any issues with talking to your mom. Not everybody is in that place, but I think when I grew up, in my household specifically, my parents were really clear. We are not your friends. We're not here to be your friends. And they would say that you're confused. We are not friends. We are your parents. And a parent's job is exactly what you said. I am here to take care of you. I am here to teach you right from wrong. Now, what I'll say is when I went to college, my first weekend in college, I was like, who are these people? They're so cool. As soon as I went on Morgan State's campus, they flipped the script and we've been besties. But as I was growing up, even though they were clear, we had a very open relationship. I could talk to them about anything. I always could talk to them, whether if it was strangely sex, I could talk to them about boys, I could talk to them about school. They were advocates. If something was we expect A's in our household because we are not average. Like, this is an average household. But is it your best? But they'll be in the teacher's face in a minute. You know, to protect you or to stick up for you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. My mother didn't play. Like, she don't play, you know. But as long as you doing what you're supposed to be doing and all that, then she's cool. Like, I remember people used to think, like, I had the nicest, like, your mom is never mad. And y'all don't see her when I push her, okay? Like, because you can push her in a second. But at the same time, I felt like, for the most part, I could talk to my mom about anything. You know, she still made it clear, you know, that I can talk to her about everything.
How did you handle the idea with your mom with rights versus what I call privileges? And that's a conversation we have in my house a lot, is the difference between your rights and your privileges. And we had a question right before the break from someone whose child was asking them about her rights and was complaining with respect to the cell phone. And immediately what I thought of is, well, cell phones are privileges, they're not rights, and there's a difference. Absolutely. So how did you navigate that with your mom, and is that an issue yet with your daughter, or is she too young?
No, she's too young. Well, I mean, she does have like a little iPad, it's like an old iPad, and if she, you know, does something in school, I will take the iPad away, you know, so this right here, this is mine for a week or until I see you improving on whatever it is the problem is. And I know, you know, when I was young, my mom used to take my cell phone all the time. And you know, I got into my little mood where I was like, that's not fair, but at the same time, I never.
We didn't have that when we were growing up. Cell phone,
Well, I mean, I had a cell phone. I got my first cell phone in high school, and it was like a prepaid cell phone. I think my aunt had got it for me, and my mom was like, she didn't even agree with it at first, but that was a prepaid one. Even though it was a prepaid, she was still taking that. So, I mean, I don't think I ever had a problem with like, well, it's my right to have my cell phone. No, when she took it, I knew that was her right to take it. I'm like, okay, Mom, you got that.
She set those expectations and boundaries.
Exactly.
So, Keita, welcome to the conversation. I'm going to challenge you with your first question to really help us navigate is, you know, what do you do when someone comes to you and says, my child holds these people on this pedestal, but they're really bad influences on her? What are some things you would coach that parents would do?
Coming from, I mean, my background in children has mostly been
children in foster care, and I don't have any children of my own. So I always start with that. I don't have any children of my own, but I have worked with children for a long time. So speaking from the perspective of working with foster parents who have other people's children in their home, it's really hard. It was always really hard for them to really parent them as they were their own child, and keeping in mind that they were their foster parent. They were guiding them through this process of being in foster care. So trying to just instill in those children that, you know, the friends that you follow at school, they're not always going to be making the best decisions. So for me, it was more just like encouraging them and reminding them that you are the parent. So what would you tell your own child? How would you tell your own child to act? Because this is your child for the next year or 2 years or however long. So, you know, the best advice I could give them is, like I said, just remind them that that was their own child, and what would you tell your own child to do? How would you tell them to act around certain people? How would you tell them to respond to peer pressure? I mean, that was the best advice I could give them. I mean, I'm not an expert in kids by any means.
But I think from the perspective of why you're so value added to this conversation is because from the mental health space, whether it is children or the adults, because the adults sometimes are parents of these children, and that conversation might come in. It's good to kind of see both, and that's why you're so valuable to the perspective of what we're talking about today. So yay. I think from parents, from a parental standpoint, when you know you see your child holding these children on pedestals, sometimes you got to remember you are the parent. And there's sometimes you just got to try to shut it down. And I remember on several occasions, and it's easier said than done. I do totally agree with that. I know you're not with your child at school for 8 hours a day. You know, they're going to curse you out. Absolutely not. But in some households, you know, children speak to their parents. It happens. So with that being said, you got to be the no man. Sometimes you can't be your child's friend. And sometimes you have to step up and say, I am your parent, and this is exactly what's going to happen right now. This is what's going to happen right now in my home. This is why. And that's what we're ending with this. My child is only 6, but he's 7 now. But I feel like he's 7 turning 27. And sometimes the talking back, sometimes it's not even disrespectful. It is like, why are we still talking? This is not a negotiation. I'm sorry, was I engaging with you? Right. So I just think starting that stuff young is so important because it builds those boundaries that you talked about. And I think the same for teachers as well.
I know, like with me, and I see my wife is on here. She probably get mad. But you know, me and my wife and I, we were raised 2 different ways. It's not a good way or a bad way. We were just raised 2 different ways. And I was raised Southern, so there wasn't a right privilege discussion. Because you knew you do it. That's pretty much what it is. If you didn't eat, you starve. Guess what? And if I say do it and you didn't do it, it's a consequence. Usually it was a belt. But I remember all my butt whoopings.
See, I must have developed the old school gene because I'm the one that's saying, well, if you don't want this, then you must not be hungry. But her dad, you know, was Princess, so he's the sucker. I'm sorry to say it, but he's like, oh, you don't want this? Okay, well, what do you want? Let me find you something you might know. If you don't eat this, you're not hungry, and don't ask me for no snacks, no cookie, no candy, no none of that, no juice. No.
But I was pretty much the same way. And what's different is when you have kids is that you try to instill some of how you were raised into them. And my wife tries to do the same. So it's like there has to be a balance. And sometimes there's a balance, sometimes there isn't. I know with my son, he's very sarcastic. And he got that from me. You know, because I'm still to some degree very sarcastic. And my daughter, she's very, you know, she'll hold stuff in. But I have a tendency not to want to listen. You know, I can admit it. Because the way I was raised, I don't need to listen to you. I said do it, that's it. I think what happens is as you get older, is that if you don't value the child's opinion, they're not going to give you opinion when it really matters. So that's something for me that I had to learn. And, you know, for those fathers out there that have your baby girls or your little boys, you definitely want to allow them to have an opinion. But to be respectful.
Yes, and that's something I think is really challenging for us as parents, is coming to terms with the fact that questioning is actually a sign of intelligence. And if you have a child that doesn't question anything, then you should really be concerned. And so again, like you said, I think the key is the manner in which they do it. There has to be an acknowledgement of hierarchy. There has to be an acknowledgement of respect. There has to be an acknowledgement of boundaries. But we do want our children to question because, again, like we were talking about earlier in the show, when they're away from you, we want them to be questioning. When it's just them and their peers and they have to make decisions about going left or right, we want them to be able to question. We want that judgment to kick in. So when they're in the home, sometimes it's instinctively we want to shut it off and give them, it's my way or the highway. You don't need to know why. You don't need an explanation. I don't owe you an explanation because I said so. But we have to really be careful about then impairing or shutting off their reasoning skills.
And the only thing I want to add to that is when you're dealing with the school setting, there's a time and place. And what I mean is, if I ask you, look, I need for you to sit down. Well, I don't want to sit down. Why sit down? Okay, at that point, no. Because we're not going to have this conversation amongst you and the rest of the students. Because what happens as a student, if you empower the student to belittle the teacher, then guess what? The teacher's lost control of the class.
Absolutely.
When you, and be honest with you, and someone's mentioned in my book, you have administrators who allow the teacher to lose their power because they give all the power to the student. And then they wonder why they have classroom management issues. But guess what? You as the administrator didn't do your job and support that teacher. And be honest with you, I'm guessing it happens in at least 50% of schools, a vast majority. Because students have come in saying, hey, we have these rights. We have, forget a privilege. No, this is our right. And then sometimes administrators buy into it because, well, these are babies who have to treat them a certain way. Guess what? The world's not going to treat you that way.
And I think some of our educators that are looking on our administrators might even look at it a different way in a sense of, they're there to educate for a time frame, but there's a role that the parents or guardians also have with these children. And a lot of times there's parents or guardians that send their children to school to get them out of the house, and they become the problem in the school. So I think when we talk about administrators and teachers and what their role is, it really pairs with the guardians as well, because your stuff starts at home first. You learn it on the street, at home somewhere, and you're bringing that in with you. So I would love to get back to you, Brianna, to tell, because I think the power in your story is that depression, the fear, anxiety, all of that stuff is so silent sometimes, and you don't know about it. So I'd love for you to share your story, and as you do, I want to bring up to people that the reason that we are sharing it is because just in doing some research, I found that the average age of a child having mental disorder is at age 14. And when I mentioned that, I was like, oh my gosh. But when I mentioned that, Brianna said, I'm surprised that it's that old.
Yeah.
And you look at our children now, and even the stuff my 6-year-old is dealing with, I'm like, this can shut a person down.
Absolutely.
It really can.
So let's start there. As soon as we come back from break, let's start with that story. Please stay with us. We'll be right back with Now We're Talking.
Yes.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to today's graduation ceremony. Students, when you hear the reason or reasons for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Once you've exited, remove your cap and gown and proceed into the unknown. Too tired. Family trip. Part-time job. Helping around the house. Sick day. Starting the holidays early. Just because.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school. How many days of school has your child missed this year? Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org today. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
The Artist Exchange Radio Show every Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Every Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artist, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com. I was meeting with a friend yesterday, and I've gotten to the point where don't ask me a question because the truth is going to come out. And
exactly.
Just don't do it.
If you ain't looking for the truth, don't come to me.
Don't do it because I can't hold my tongue. And she wants to be this stylist, boutique, but you're not doing anything in that nature, and I can't take you seriously if you're not doing those things. And I understood why people didn't take me seriously because I found myself in somebody else's lane. I was good at what I was doing and what I wanted to be, but I wasn't doing it for me. So how can I ask you to take me seriously if I'm living in somebody else's shoes?
And nobody can do what you do, and I think that that's a big problem that people face now. Like, you see what somebody else is doing and you want to do that when that's not your lane.
That's not your lane.
That's not what you're supposed to be doing.
But it's popular, it's getting that person money, it's getting that person applause. Oh, I want applause. I want money. Let me stand over here behind them.
And then a lot of times people aren't honest with themselves either. Like, I was thinking earlier today, I've been woke for almost 2 days, so so you get honesty, yes. And I was thinking, like, you know,
the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Skirt, 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 skirt. Start, skirt, 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 start. I be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face. I be up in the way. 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 Bedroom phone ring, girl in t-shirt answers me. I get off on the way that she answers me. First time saw her, I knew she was the one for me. Ever since then, we've been vibing on some chemistry. It's just a matter of time. I know she feeling my vibe. I got the keys to the ride. She put her hands on my thigh. She got that look in her eye. Let's tell what I'm riding. Royalty, call me highness. All day and overnighted. Cause it's crunch time when I'm grinding. This Adderall got me nauseous. Proceed with caution. Tired of lane, I'm exhausted. Poppin' Zanny Zan, sipping out the faucet. I'm confused, don't know what I'm doing. Wait, what I'm doing? Got me going where the I'm going. Out of space where I'm going.
My name is Ruth Rusi. I'm a retired teacher. I'm 91 years old, and this is how I live united. I say retired, but not really. Once a week, I read books to children as part of United Way's education program. Reading to a child creates links between language and literacy. It creates a bond between grown-up and child. And believe it or not, it prepares them for a better academic future.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back. And now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita. We're having a great discussion right now about, goodness gracious, raising children, all the considerations and the difficulties in doing that. Also finding solutions along the way. We're talking about mental health issues. We're talking about special education, dealing with school systems. And we were joined in our last segment by LaKetia. And right before we took a break, we were talking to Brianna, who was about to give us a little bit of insight into her story.
Yes, okay. So I actually realized in the midst of all the craziness, I actually did not tell my story at my brunch, which was nuts. I actually kind of just handed the mic off and let all the panelists tell their story and sat back and kind of listened. But at the brunch, I did not tell my story. I told how the Yana Project got started, but I'll go back over that. So last year, it was actually last Easter, I had a family dinner, and I've been struggling for depression for a long time now. I honestly couldn't even tell you what age it started, but we were at Easter dinner, and I realized that, I got there. Usually being around my family makes me really happy, but this particular day I could not get myself together. So I just kept taking myself into a room by myself, dark, quiet, crying. I just kept crying. I would get myself together, come out the room. Couldn't get myself together. That went along the whole day. So finally my mom, she's like, okay, let me see what's going on. So she comes in and she sits next to me. She doesn't ask me what's wrong. She just hugs me and she says, Brianna, you're not alone. She said, Brianna, you are not alone. I'm here. You are not alone. So right then and there, that did it. Yeah, that did it for me. That did it for me. And after that, I was like, I need an outlet. You know, I need other people who understand what I'm going through. You know, people who are not going to just, because there are people who sit and they'll ask somebody with depression or anxiety, well, what is wrong? Like, I understand you're upset, but why? You're depressed, why? Tell me exactly what's bothering you. And sometimes it's just not that easy, you know. So I need a platform of people that can get together and share their stories and realize, like, it may not just be one thing, but it's an actual condition. It's an actual thing that you have to get help for. And it's important to realize when you really need help for it. Because I know when I was younger, my mom tried to get me to go to a therapist and it didn't work. I didn't want to go back. But when I got older, I went back as an adult. Best thing ever. Yeah. Therapy it works, it helps, it's important. You need that. Like, a lot of people don't realize, people think that only crazy people go to therapy. That's not the case at all. It's not just crazy people. But since I was young, I was bullied, you know. People used to make fun of me. I had too much hair on my arms or hair on my legs. Or now at this point in my life, this is the smallest I've ever been. Now people, oh, you're so skinny, you're too skinny. You see, but it comes to a point in life where you have to stop listening to you're too hairy, you're too skinny, and you have to learn to love yourself. So that's where I am at the point of my life now. I'm trying to learn how to love myself. And I want other people to be able to get to that point in their life. So that's what the You Are Not Alone project is about. Getting to that point.
And so it's an annual brunch where she brings together.
Starting.
Yes, it's an annual brunch. Claim it. You had one last year. You're going to have one this year.
No, I'm saying starting, meaning I want to do more than just a brunch once a year. Yes.
Absolutely.
So last year it was just a panel of women. This year I want to incorporate men into it. I just feel as though I can't speak from a man's point of view. I cannot tell you how it is to be a man with mental illness. So I have to bring men on that have that experience to share their stories. And it's really hard to get a man to share their story because some men may feel as though it makes them weak to share their stories, but it's not. It's the complete opposite.
And I kind of wanted to feed into that one because, you know, as you say it, I'm sitting here thinking that's where I got to the point where I had to go to counseling. And, you know, after my first deployment, my wife said I came back different. You know, I was like, all right, whatever. You know, I didn't think of it. After the second deployment, I came back even worse. And there were some things that happened to me when I was younger that were suppressed. So when I went to therapy, it all came out. And I'm not the therapy type person. You know, it's bad enough that I have to explain what's going on to, you know, people that love me and I care about, but then you're speaking to a complete stranger. And, you know, any form of mental illness is difficult for any man to talk about, but especially the black man. Because there is this, you know, this alpha in us that refuses to show our vulnerabilities because it will make us look weak. But what I realized as I got older is that those same vulnerabilities can be those vulnerabilities that you pass on to your kids. And then it you know, honestly, it almost teared our family apart because of things that happened with me. So you know, hearing your story, you know, I was in a zone because I was one of those men who just refused to admit the obvious. So I definitely appreciate your story.
And that's why I'm a big proponent of the idea that there are no male problems and female problems, man problems and women problems, and we do live in a society that tries to frame things in that way, but the story you told is very relevant for men to understand that story, and for the men in your life, whether it's your child's father, whoever you get married to, if you have sons, any man in your life, to understand your perspective and where you're coming from so that they could adequately be there for you and support you. And likewise for you, you grew up and eventually got married, and you grew up and eventually had a daughter. So it's extremely important for you to know that you can express yourself when it comes to what's going on with you mentally to your spouse and not be judged or not be condemned or not be looked at as a weak person. And so I just really think it's really important that we all realize our interdependency as men and women, and that we teach our children that same interdependency, because it's so necessary for our mental health.
Yeah. Keita, what are some things that we could look for in our children, or we can know that, hey, we should dig in a little bit? I know you mentioned I would just go off to a dark room and I would come back and leave.
And before I answer that, I wanted to go back to what Brianna said about depression. I think just having worked with people with depression, it's one of the hardest things to explain to someone who's not dealing with it.
Exactly.
What it's like.
Exactly.
And I tell people that come into my office, I can't tell you what to tell your family because you're going through it. But it's difficult for their families to understand, because they're like, oh, just get out of bed, or oh, let's go do this. But when you physically, like, your mind won't allow you to leave the bed, like, it's hard for someone to understand that who's not going through it. So I'm glad that your mom recognized that something was going on, and that you went back to therapy, because some people will go to therapy once and never go back. And everybody needs therapy. I'm a therapist, and I need therapy myself. And back to what you said too, I see a lot of black men from like in their early 20s to their late 50s, 60s that come into my office. They're dealing with their mental health issues, and they're like crying, and they can't cry in front of their family, so they break down and they cry in my office, and they're like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be very strong, but you're dealing with something that you have to have that release. You have to cry. You have to get that out. And as a black community, traditionally, we have not wanted to share our business outside of the family. And so therapy has been very taboo in our community. But more and more people are engaging in it, which I think is great.
So what are some signs that we should look out for with our friends
kids?
Or kids? I mean, friends, adults?
Yeah. Just, I would say someone who's withdrawing, who's isolating themselves. Their mannerisms change, their mood changes very swiftly. They're not communicating like they used to. They're angry, they're irritable. Any little thing sets them off. Any of those things.
I'm a certified life and executive coach, and a lot of times, not a lot, but I have on a number of occasions dealt with a client who we're talking about, breaking these barriers and what their beliefs are and why they believe that. And occasionally you do have to recommend to a client, hey, a therapist is really where I believe you should start. We're still going to finish this, because the difference is that what a therapist is able to do and certified to do and gone to school to do is really to take you back, to understand that trauma of that you're sitting on right now, because there's this release that has to happen. Because what my job is as a coach is to meet you where you are now, and then to take you where you want to be. Like, I'm good at that, I got you. But you got to recognize, coaches especially have to recognize that we are not therapists. Right? And you've got to make that recommendation and recognize when someone, after you've tried your method, after you've utilized those, and they come back to this same place, and they're not moving, it's for a reason. There's tactics that someone else needs to really dig in that's really qualified to do that. So all of that is to say that therapy is a blessing. To sit down and talk to someone and allow yourself to just release.
And be vulnerable.
And be free. It's to then allow you to progress to where you absolutely deserve to be.
And it's the only opportunity that you'll have to do it with someone that's not personally invested in your story or your life or your family, and it's invaluable.
And the thing about it, when we talk about it in the education arena, the unfortunate part of education is that there's not enough money or enough manpower, woman power, as far as therapists to deal with all the students. Who I probably would say, probably 90% of the students have some issues coming in. So the teachers really are the therapists, the psychologists, the parent, and we put on a lot of hats. And but what I think what typically happens with students that are going through some traumatic experiences, for a teacher, it's difficult to have that teachable moment if it's isolated simply on that student. Yeah. So you try to get them the counselor, the therapist, and sometimes you can't. You know, every day, and I'm fortunate where I'm at, there's a couple teachers, so I can come outside, have a conversation with the student, see what's going on. And I don't, I'm like, oh, I said, let's calm down first. First, I just try to get the student calm down. Even when they're fighting, I said, I need for you to calm down, okay? Because what I've learned is when they yell and you yell, it doesn't, you know, it's like throwing fire, like gas on fire.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I try to bring it down to get them to the point where they want to talk. If they don't want to talk, just, you know, let them calm down. But a lot of times they just want somebody to listen. And even adults, I'm saying, you know, when people vent, I don't want you to say anything, I just want to talk. I'm like, okay, you know, be quiet and listen. So, and I think for education, it's a struggle that I don't think it's going to get any better. Only because, like I mentioned before, the resources are not going to be there. They're never going to be there. And there's just not enough therapists who actually, you know, that can do it. So we have to start at home. And if we can get back to, you know, I guess, you know, days before the cell phone, then we can take away some of these distractions. Because all these things have been there. Just with the advent of technology, it's just more visible to us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the things we talked about is setting expectations and boundaries, right? I'm imagining that in your practice, you have to set boundaries and expectations up front.
Right.
Yeah. What are some things that you can talk to people about? We're talking children, but even with adults, like what are some strategies that parents can use to begin to set those boundaries if they haven't already?
Set the boundaries with their children?
And all of us can answer because we've all been there, either a child with parents, or we're parents with children, or we're therapists with boundaries that need to be made for adults.
I think one important boundary is just learning to having that respect for each other and not crossing those lines, you know, into disrespect. And especially in my practice, like, because I see young 20-year-old males and they're have been out on the street, so they're used to talking any kind of way. So I don't allow them to bring their street language, if you will, into my office when I'm working with them. So those are some boundaries that I set, and I think same thing with parents. You know, even though, I mean, you probably try that with your child, but if they break it, if they cross it, you have to keep going back to it, and there are consequences. You know, so, and I like, you know, I saw you a few weeks ago with Walker, and he was trying to get something, and you're like, you have two choices. These are your choices. And so I thought that's what parents should be doing, you know, and I didn't even know I was going to be sitting here today.
Right.
But I noticed that in you, and I had just met you that day. So,
Yes. I believe in boundaries. I think that, I mean, as everybody has said, is when you set them, people know where they're going, right? If I already know where I am, like, you got to know the boundaries. It's like a fence. I got to know how far I can go before I'm going to get electrocuted out that corner. You know, now I can make a choice, right? So now I understand it, and I just so believe in boundaries and setting expectations. So with my son, now they don't always follow the rules, but that's okay. That's okay. But you chose to do that. When you know the boundaries, everything else becomes a choice. And you recognize that now I've made that choice and there's going to be consequences. So to the person that was, you know, asking us just about from the parenting perspective, when your children are holding somebody at a high standard and you don't feel like they're there, or when they think that they should have the wants versus the privileges, how do you do that? I think it's reestablishing boundaries. And I don't think you ever get too old to reestablish boundaries.
Yeah, but that's something you have to start with young with your children, boundaries, because you have boundaries all throughout life. You got boundaries at work, you got boundaries when you drive, you got boundaries all around you. So you have to start at home. We have to learn how to set boundaries, and you have to learn how to follow the rules. You have to learn. So it starts at home.
And I think part of the problem, you know, from being an educator, is that some parents didn't set those boundaries. And either one or two things are happening. Either they're allowed to do this at home, or the parents don't know they're doing it. So, and what I found out, a vast majority don't know, because, you know, when a student gives me lip and blah blah blah, I say, oh, okay, let's go ahead and call your mom. So when the mom or dad comes in, I look at them. No, that same vigor you gave me.
Give it back.
No, I didn't do that. He's lying. And I'm looking at him. So now I'm lying.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to waste your time or your parents' time for you to come in here. I'm saying, I always say, if you're going to be about it, be about it. And a lot of them aren't. So, you know, but when you have those parents that are not setting these boundaries, that makes it difficult for educators. It makes it difficult for therapists. It makes it difficult for those. You know, don't get me wrong. If those things weren't there, therapists wouldn't have a job. But I don't think they get in the business and say, look, I need for you to be dysfunctional and bring all this, you know, because you want to rehabilitate.
How do you grow a child in your class when there is so much disruption in the class? Everybody brings in baggage, but talk to us about strategies that you use in your own classroom when you have other distractions. How do you grow the children that want to be there?
Well, in the beginning stage, they pretty much know where I'm at.
Oh, you did say that. You said
they know where I'm at. And I set the expectation. I said everyone has right to think, right to learn, and a right to be safe. And I got that when I started teaching Baltimore City, because I had cases where students literally would just walk into the class like, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm going to see my man." I said, "You need to get out." Wow. So I set that up, and I think, and then what happens to me, I use my life experiences. So when I talk about the military, and you know, those things kind of, may not necessarily resonate with them, but I go, okay, Mr. Terry is saying some true stuff. I let them know how I was as a kid. I played sports, so I try to say and do things that they can relate to. My female students, at the time, you know, I didn't have a daughter, so I started 20 years ago, whatever it was. So I would, you know, tell them, you need to act like a lady. You don't need to have these guys disrespecting you and stuff like that, because I know, you know, I always say, don't do things that, you know, your mom or dad won't be proud of. And when you do, you have to own up to it. You know, I've been there where I've done some things I haven't been proud of, and it hurt. It hurt me to the core to have to explain myself. So, you know, I try to put things in a way to where the students can take ownership of their choices in life. And everything that they do, somewhere down the road, it's going to affect someone. You call someone, excuse my language, you're fat, you're skinny, you're ugly, you're this. You don't know how that's going to affect that student down the road. And I was guilty of that when I was in middle school, not thinking that it traumatized a friend of mine. That, you know, we've discussed this since I said 6th grade. I was stupid. I didn't know, you know. But, you know, as I reflect on it, you know, I wish that I had the mindset to not buy into peer pressure.
Yeah,
trying to be cool.
That's exactly, Brianna, what you were talking about earlier about affirming your daughter early. Because reality is, our current environment, our global society, everything is everybody's news. You go on Instagram today, you're being videoed and you don't even know, and you end up there. One thing my father used to always tell me is, don't say anything or do anything you don't want on the cover of the New York Times. Like, point blank, period. Don't say it or do it. And so,
unless you want it all over everybody's internet and live and everything.
And in those moments, those teachable moments with your daughter, you just remind her back of your teaching, that consistency that you talked about. So continue affirming, because the people, you know, they're going to have people that say, you are fat, you're ugly, you got too much hair on your arms, all of that stuff. You know, you're not cool. Somebody told my son, somebody's been telling him, you act like a girl, you act like a girl all the time. And reality is, who are you? Let's start. Who are you?
Who do you think you are? Who do you believe you are?
Yes. Who do you know you are? Who do I tell you you are? Who do you demonstrate you are?
Yeah, whose opinion is the most important?
Yeah.
And something I always try to instill is, the most important opinion is your opinion about yourself. So I'm asking you to do things, I'm asking you to be a certain way and behave a certain way. And to some extent, I want you to care about what I think and how I feel, but the priority is actually what you think, because eventually you're going to be independent. I did want to ask you, Brianna, for people who, I know this is a question I've gotten a lot, and I know a lot of people have these questions. How do you tell the difference, or how do you know the difference between someone who is depressed, or if you're depressed, or if you're just in a rut, is a phrase that we hear used, or if you're just going through a period of momentary sadness, or you're just in a bad place right now in life. Is there a difference between those things and an actual diagnosis?
Yeah, it's a difference. And it also depends on who is that person to you and how often are you around them and how much are you paying attention to them, on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. Everybody has things that are going to put you in a rut for a second, and it is a difference. But depression is where you get to the point where you feel as though you can't get out of it. So it's not just one thing that made you feel like, I'm pissed off for the moment. It's these things that are keeping you in bed for days, and like when you have all the bad thoughts and everything just rushing into your head at once, and for some reason you just can't shake anything, that's when you become, that's when it crosses the line, and you know that it's something different. You can't get out of bed, you can't function correctly, like she said, your moods are swiftly changing, back and forth. And that also goes to like being a parent, and a parent with depression and the parenting part of it, and you have to realize like you can't take that out on your kids or snap at your kids because you're depressed, or I've had points where I've been depressed and I said, okay, well, I need my daughter's godmother, hey, can you come get her for the day? I just need a day to myself to get myself together. And it's okay to take that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay to take that time for yourself and say, hey, I need a day, turn your phone on, do not disturb, send the kid away for a moment and just focus on yourself and getting your mind back right, because it's a big difference, and it's really hard to sometimes get out of that funk.
And similarly for you, Mr. Terry, how do you know the difference between if a child is emotionally disturbed versus a child who is undisciplined or bored or unchallenged or lacks a father figure in the home? Because I've heard a counter argument or a pushback to diagnosis is being put on our kids with, it's just a discipline issue, it's just a fatherhood issue. But I know there has to be a difference, right?
But typically for emotionally disturbed students, there's a series of tests they have to take. So it's not, a student cuss you out doesn't mean they're emotionally disturbed. Typically it's some type of traumatic experience, whether they're dealing with depression could be one of them. It can be, I call it highly oppositional defiant. They can be physically violent and things of that nature. And you look at things that are typical for the age. It's not typical for a 5-year-old to walk up to you and just smack you in your face. That's not typical. It's not typical for a student when they see a crowd of students. No, I can't be around them. That's not age appropriate. So there's a series of tests they have to take to be diagnosed with ED. And I think from my experience, most students that are labeled ED typically is accurate, pretty accurate. Where I don't agree is students that are labeled ADHD, where if you act okay for me, you don't have ADHD, you have selective ADHD, because you made a choice to act right for her or him and act wrong for somebody else. And I think that's where when we're dealing with students who have ADHD, which comes with the hyperactivity, which then eventually makes them to ED, where I have a problem, because there's been a lot of students that I've been around. You're not wrong with this boy. I said, you just didn't know how to talk to him. And that's really what it comes down to.
And you know firsthand because they've been in your class.
Yeah, or I may look and say, why would they diagnose? But and when it happens, you look, and it's unfortunate, but when you're dealing in an urban area, you may have non-black teachers, or you may have female teachers that are dealing with young black boys who will make a diagnosis. Well, you know what? I think they're ADHD because they're doing this, and whatever. But it may just be typical for that environment in which they live in. Meaning, like, I'm on the basketball court and we're hyper and we're playful. When I was a kid, we played outside. Am I hyper? No, I'm just a kid. So I think what happens is like sometimes they're diagnosed for simply being a kid, or misdiagnosed for simply being a kid.
Okay. Wow. So one of the things I wanted to, I think that's fair. I think in schools, our children, it's so easy for them to get labeled, you know, so quickly. My son is in 1st grade, and it's so quickly, they're having behavior problems, they're having this. And quite frankly, the teachers have like 30-something kids in their class. And when a child is acting out, they don't have time to figure out why, and it becomes so easy to say this. But when you dig in as a parent, one of the things we leave our audience with an acronym each week on what we're talking about so that they have tips and strategies. And one of them is going to be, you got to be all in. That's what we all talked about. You got to be all in. Sometimes that means that you got to go up to the school and be an advocate for your child. You know your child is with you too. And if there's things that seem out of the ordinary, absolutely talk to your child and dig in. Have that time. Turn off your phones. Make sure they don't have their laptops. Kids, Walker has an iPad. It's because some of their homework in kindergarten was on a computer. So it's natural, right? In our society right now, there's got to be a time where you got to be all in as a parent. And what does that look like and feel like? Yeah. So, and what would you, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I think you hit it on the head. Be involved and be the advocate for your child because no one else is going to be.
Absolutely.
So go to the school and I tell people, because I work part-time in the psych ER at one of the local hospitals, when kids come into the ER, we have a lot of kids that come into the ER with psych problems at as young as 8 years old. Like they're thinking of suicide and they're depressed and things of that nature. And I tell parents, you don't want your child to get a label this early. You don't want them to have a diagnosis this early in their life because it's going to follow them. So what are you doing at home? How are you involved in what's going on in their life? Are you sitting down with them? Are y'all doing homework together? Are y'all having dinner together? Are you talking to them about their day and, talking to their teachers about what's going on? Because, kids have a lot to deal with these days. So if you're not involved and you're only kind of touching the surface, then your child is going to end up with a label, and it could be a lot worse for them, down the road. You don't want them to start off this early.
But those are some good strategies that you just even said out loud about what parents can do. I remember when my child was in kindergarten in Lutherville, Timonium, the first week of school, they sent home like 25 questions that you can ask your child. I think I'll post it on our site. 25 questions you can ask your child at home just to figure out a little bit more. And every night at dinner, I used to say, all right, pick a number 1 to 25. And you pick it, and it's something like, if you could get on the coolest spaceship in the world, who would you take from your class, right? What happened in the lunchroom today? Who did the teacher have to talk to the most today? Those things that prompt you to know, okay, who is it in a class that we should be listening to about if there's a problem, and then who is it that you're bonding with? Like, just those were pretty powerful.
And I think the other thing you can always do, because every day, and I've been doing it since my kids have been in school, how was school today?
Yeah.
I always ask them how school was.
What'd you do? What'd you learn?
Right. You got the fine.
But like my son, I can literally tell when something went wrong at school. So, he has his way of saying, oh, it was okay. And he'll look at you like this. I'm like, did you get an email? I'm like, okay, something went wrong.
Well, when we come back, you guys, it is already 8:50. Can you believe it? Wow. So when we come back, we're going to speed through like the strategies that we're going to collectively pull together for you, and then we'll list out any upcoming events and social media so folks can stay in touch. When we come back, now we're talking.
Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
You want to start off?
I think I'll get it out of the way on a who's not.
Okay, do it.
The Orioles.
Right.
They got swept by the Royals. They lost 4 in a row, and the last 5 games have all been decided by 1 run.
Mm-hmm.
The game before, or the last game that they lost before the Royals was the Nationals, and it was Weeders, of course, won with a home run.
Hit the home run.
Right. They were going into that National series. It seemed like they were doing so well, and they just crapped out. They got that game postponed, so who knows when they're going to replay that or play that game.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first not for the night.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and weigh in on my who's not, and I'm going to talk about the San Diego Padres.
The Padres. That's okay. You just took my answer.
They're in last place in the NL West. They've lost 8 of their last 10. Their run differential is a -65, which is just horrible. So when you have well, let me just talk about run differential a little bit. It's kind of like the
how much you're winning or losing your games by, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the margin of victory, kind of.
Right.
So when you're in a negative number, that means that you're.
Then your average game you're losing
by a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, a number like negative 65.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back. We have had such an amazing conversation. Thank you guys for coming. This is Miss Brianna. This is Mr. Derrick Terry. I keep on wanting to say Terry. And my son's name is Walker Bishop. So it does
2 first names.
2 first names. I love it, but it's power. Yes, and this is Miss LaKetia Peoples, and of course you have myself and the Mervin Bourne. So we've been talking about growing us and growing our children. So every week we leave you with an acronym of strategies. So if you're just joining us, you've got to go back and listen to the beginning of this segment to the end. It's just been so powerful and leaves you with a lot of different strategies. Today we're leaving you with health, HEALTH. Hear your children, but really listening in on what they are saying. Be in tune to what they're saying. Listen in. Expectations and boundaries. We talked a lot about setting expectations. And the great news is if you haven't, it's not too late at any age. Reset them. Have a family meeting. Hey, let's talk. Right? This is what I'm resetting these expectations and these boundaries to be. The A is for all in. Be all in. Be involved. Be an advocate for your child and be consistent. Sometimes you might got to go to school, but if you say no, be consistent with that. Don't let off. That is the consequence, right? You talked about consequences. Love on your children. Let them know I am so proud of you.
Yes.
Hug on them, but touch them.
Yes.
Hug them. Let them know you really care. So love on them.
And your sons as well. Sons need love and hugs too.
Yes. Oh, lift them up. Lift them up. So T is for talk. And communication, this is all about opening up the lines of communication and having that early. There's so much power in a relationship when you can talk to each other. It doesn't mean there's no respect.
Right.
It means that you're keeping the lines of communication open, right?
Talk to them, not at them, right?
Yes. Talk to understand. Listen to understand. And then the last one is have the ability to recognize that you need self-care too, right? Brianna talked about the fact that I call a girlfriend sometimes and just say, I need a day. Sometimes you need that. Self-care for you, but also recognize that they might need time in their room too. But monitor that time. How often are they going to their room? But give them that time and let them know that space is okay. Right?
Yeah,
that summarize what we talked about today?
Yes.
A little bit. So let's go down the list and let people know where they can contact you.
Oh, we gotta start with me. You can contact me on all social media. That's Brianna, Brianna. Talia, Taliaa. That's Facebook, Twitter. You can follow my Facebook page. You can go to youarenotalone.com. You can check out last year's brunch if you want to look at that and be on the lookout for this year's upcoming brunch in October, hopefully October 6th, with men involved this time.
Yes, absolutely. Claim it. It's going to happen. It's going to be awesome. Yes.
All right, well, once again, I'm Derrick Terry. You can follow me on some social media.
I know, that's right.
And also, while you follow me, pick up your copy of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying, the Memoirs of the Good and Bad Education. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. That's about it, really.
Where can they buy your book?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can buy the book actually on bookpatch.com. You can also go on my website, which is EdvoCare. That's E as in Echo, D as in Delta, D as in Victor, O care.org. And if you go on my website, it'll also talk about the services that EdvoCare provides for special needs children as well as the parents of special needs. And we provide workshops as well.
I think that's so powerful because that there's resources out there. So thanks for sharing that. EdvoCare.
And I am LaKetia Peoples, and I'm not on social media.
That's okay.
I'm not one of those social media people. So, but if you need to get in contact with me, you can.
Yep, let me know and we'll get you there. And if you need some mental health services, then let me know and we'll absolutely be in contact with LaKetia. And also, you said too that you work at the ER. Where is that?
I work at Adventist Hospital in Rockville in the ER. psyche are.
And I think the power in that there, not that you need to go visit her. It's
right.
more so, please don't go visit.
do
not go and say you heard it on Now We're Talking. It's more so that it is okay to take your children in if you feel that they need help. So
Absolutely.
you talked about even as young as 8 years old. And I think sometimes as a parent, you might struggle with, oh my gosh, can I take care of this? Is it okay to take them in? But just know that it's happening and it's all right to get help if you need help.
Yes.
So Lolita Walker, I am a certified life and executive coach. I am also the author of The Intersection of You and Change. And the beauty of that in relation to what we're talking about is it is that self-care. It is actually taking you on a journey of self-discovery and you journaling that. So you're getting it out and you're actually answering detailed questions to really understand what's going on with you. And it's a powerful tool that mothers can use with their daughters and do it together. So I encourage you to get that. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on my website at lolitawalker.com.
And I actually read the book, and it is very powerful.
Thank you.
Even though I'm not a daughter.
I know. A couple of men have read it.
Very insightful.
Yes, thank you.
Very challenging, very inspirational as well.
Thank you.
So, I am Mervin A. Bourne Jr. I am the author of A Single Mother's Guide to Raising a Son. You can find me on my website where I blog quite often, mervinbourne.com. You can find me on Facebook at Mervin A. Bourne Jr., on Instagram at the MABJR. You can reach me by email at mervinbourne@gmail.com. And if you have any feedback, comments, questions, potential show topics for Lolita or myself, you can reach us at nowwe'retalkinglive@gmail.com.
Yes, or right here on Now We're Talking Live where you're watching us right now. So thank you so much for joining in. Tune in. We're going to post the after show, which will be really quick, to the point, and a little bit more about what we're talking about. See you later. Thanks for joining
us. Have a great week.
Bye.
First they love you, then desert you. Leave with a plate full with no spoon. Ain't no space, I can't escape negativity. I got used to the taste. I've been bad, burned, then fucked over. But remain strong through the past over. Kicking haters out of the way like masked over. Roll up, sip something, let it pass over. Who would I be? It ain't the man to me to let the next man take advantage of me. When that storm come, no pen I see. Get with it, not without it, then you'll see. I peep the haters, they know I'm greater. That's why they buzzing for the elevator. But I can't save you, the weed too loud on the pedal stool. Don't carry fakers, always got your hand out demanding favors. When I just look down, now you need more paper. I can't breathe, give me 3 feet. I never let y'all be the death of me. When my patients run that, yeah, nigga OT. Cause they wanna see me down like I'm NCT. 6 words, get the fuck away from me. Say I help you out if you can help yourself. I keep it G till I D.I.E. Now excuse me while I get